Hey everybody, my name is Nick and I run District North Media and Design, a small boutique design studio in northern New Hampshire. I recently had the experience of emailing someone, Mr. Ben Burns, who works for Blind and the Future, and he, to my surprise, emailed me back, which is very surprising, especially for little old me in New Hampshire. Nobody usually cares about me, although I have clients kind of all over the world. The future has really helped me a lot with just kind of understanding a little bit more about the business of design. And it's a great place to get some information, so please go and check them out. I was really struck with Ben's story. It spoke a lot to me, kind of coming from a blue collar background, and it was quite helpful. So I just wanted to shoot him a thank you note, number one, for having the courage to post something online and kind of tell a little bit about a story, but also um, I wanted to send a thanks to him personally for emailing me back. And a lot of times we don't think about that, but I can do cold emails and cold phone calls all the time and get a lot of cold shoulders, a lot of rejection. It's just part of the business that you have to deal with. And I didn't expect him to even bother to email me back. And when he did, I thought, well, it'd be kind of cool to do a thank you note to him. But I kind of wanted to put my own little spin on it and add to the stuff I've been doing online and posting more about my process and maybe learn a little bit. So I decided to use Ben Burns' name and create a typography video where I take a very boring font, which is something that I've been wanting to do a video about, and kind of punching it up and making it look a little bit nicer. The problem that we have as commercial artists, a lot of times budgetary constraints, or let's just say the client doesn't want to have you spend days and days sketching things out on a piece of paper. You might have to kind of punch things up quickly, and I wanted to show you how to do that without having to spend a enormous amount of time kind of learning typography. So you use a base font, a very simple font, and you basically trace over it so that it allows you to create something much quicker. So I go through from A to Z all the way through the whole thing, and it's just kind of a thanks to Ben Burns for being courageous and telling a story. But if you are interested in learning more, please subscribe. I'm going to try to do these videos even more than what I'm doing now. I love doing this. I love sharing my knowledge, and I love working up in my little studio. So if you are interested in more, hit subscribe and or the like button at least to show me that you like the video. And thanks for watching. Let's dive in. So the first thing that I do is just drop in this silly font. The nice thing about this font, and the reason that I kind of picked it, was because there's not a lot of serifs. I'm going to probably add some serifs and maybe do something here. And I'll probably make this S look a little bit nicer. But, use and abuse how you like. If you don't like the things that I say, then just don't listen to them, I guess. But let's go ahead and open this up, and I'm gonna, since I don't need the font anymore, I'm actually just gonna do that. And what I think I might try to do is, well, let's just try it out. So I'm gonna shade this to gray, and then I'm gonna create a layer on top of it. And let's bring in some guides. Boop. And I think I'm going to edit these. I think I'm going to change these B's out just to do something else. So let's just focus on EN, UR, and S for right now. The nice thing about this already is that we already have two N's. And I love doing S's. They're a pain, but they're fun to do. And the U's and E's are going to be pretty similar. So let me just lock these guys. Actually, you can lock your guides, but sometimes I keep them open to kind of play around with. But I am just going to throw them on this bottom layer. And now that we have this guy kind of ready to go, I'm actually going to decrease this color a little bit more. Let's go here, and actually let's change it to transparency. So I'm going to bring the transparency down pretty low. And then lock that layer. And so let's say you didn't want to do all the custom typography. I'm just going to start bringing in shapes and seeing what happens here. So let's make this guy a nice sharp edge. Something like that. And let's see. If I want to do an E, let's lock that in place. Bring out the pen tool again. And I'm just gonna play around. I'm gonna see what works, what doesn't work. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just playing it out. And I'm just kind of using the gray as kind of my guide to see where I can go with it. If it would look cool if I did this or that or whatever the kind of case may be for each letter form, right? And right now I don't love how this looks. I kind of like the dig in there. I'm not loving the how thin this is. So, wow, the wind's really whipping if you can hear that through the microphone. That is some New Hampshire wind right there. Hopefully my studio doesn't fall down. Okay, so I'm liking that a little bit more. I think maybe I'll adjust it to size, to taste, salt to taste. And this is the fun thing about it. I have no idea what I'm doing. I did not prep any of these files. I'm just winging it as if this is what I'm doing with my life. Alright, so I kind of dig that. Not the worst thing I've ever seen. So I think I'm going to stick with it. Make sure that I have one in case. And this comes in handy when you're doing, like, let's say you were doing other letters. This comes in handy when you're doing an I, and actually it'll come in handy when I do that N too. So, and this is just like I usually make one of these as like my blank and column, you know, like if there's vertical, like it's good if you have this for a B, it can be placed right in there for a B, and you could start your B that way. And just highlight everything, merge it, and then clean it up. That's the best practice that I can tell you. If you learn nothing from this video, it's clean yo crap up. And now it's nice and clean. There's only a couple anchor points, and you want as little anchor points as you can. I'm still not in love with this part. Is a little freaking me out. And maybe what I'll do is I'll test it out down here. So So if you want to create like I just did this really quick to see if I liked it, but if you want to create like a very nice one, all you need to do is, let's say this is kind of the basic shape that I'm going for there. Just take your pen tool, make a line like that. And usually what I try to do is have the stroke on, and then the points I usually want to have as small as I can, and usually 0.25 is perfect. And then go up to your width and select kinda in the center-ish here, and just create a width there, and then expand. And you can do this a few different ways. I'll show you this way. After you expand it, just go to Effects, Warp, and then I like to use Wave. And so it went down and then up. So let's see what we're going to do here. I guess we'll go this way. Oops. Sorry, not wave, flag is what we need. So there. And now you have like a perfect, you know, if you're interested in having like a perfect shape. And you can drag that down, and it needs to be a little bit thicker. And you can just kind of pull it up. And I'm kind of digging that. Let's see if maybe down will be a little bit better. Yeah, I'm kind of digging that. I'm digging it. All right. I think what I might end up doing is actually bringing this whole thing a little bit closer so they're a little bit more condensed. But right now we're just going to leave it the way that it is. And I actually don't want to do these cut-ins on both sides. I like them just at the top. That's just a personal preference, but I think it looks pretty cool that way. So yeah, there we go. There's your E. And I understand, like, you know, I'll do another video where I do like a sans serif and I show you how to like manipulate the sans serif really quickly. But this is kind of just like a fun experiment of maybe you just want to practice, you know, figuring out forms. And so this is kind of a fun way to do that. So let's bring in the N here. I'm gonna go too crazy on this end, but if you want to do your crossbar and you want to make it look different, or sorry, not different, but you want to make it look the same. See how this, if I take this shape, is exactly that same width of the gray, right? But if you turn it on its side and you move it over here, it is not the same width. Let me go ahead and go to outline view. So this is the R shape, right? And then this is the original letter form. And you see how it's just a little bit thinner? So what I actually want to do is match that as best I can, now that I know that there's a reason why they did that. And it's a visual cue. So you want to make that so it's pretty similar, and that way you can do your own thing over here. But how we're going to do this, why, is I like to use the shear tool and just slide it over a little bit. And when you do that, it actually does narrow down on its own. Not tremendously, but it does. And so we're just going to shear it just a little bit more. And I want to kind of match up pretty well with what's already in there. And that's pretty good. I'm digging that. So now that we have that one done, and see, that wasn't super hard. That's why we create these kind of first. And I don't know why I've just always started with that. No one ever taught me that. I just kind of like starting with those. I don't know if that's a standard thing that typographers do, but I certainly like using I call them columns. But create your eyes first, and then the end's already there. So I'll just move that over there for that. And we're going to do a U. So I think of a fun way to do a U. So I want to make sure that this U follows the same thickness as our current guy. So let's bring in here a cool little circle, and we're going to match that circle up. Why? We're going to match that circle up with our shapes. And I do have smart grids turned on, so if you don't turn them on, it actually really helps. So things don't have to be so perfect. But I like this kind of curve, and it's going to help when this curve right here is going to help cut into this when we're doing the U. I don't know if you can kind of see it as it already is, but it needs to be bigger. So I'm actually just going to increase the size of this curve. And I want to kind of match, if you took this and copied in front and then scaled it larger, what you kind of want to do is follow this as best you can. And I'm just going to do it by doing it this way, which is kind of cutting it out of an already pre-existing shape that I have, because I've found that this is pretty accurate and visually still perfectly fine. All right. So let's dive back in here. All right. And you can, I mean, you could use this circle. I don't think that that's, certainly not cheating by any means. Smart Guides is really a pretty powerful tool for that. And you could do that. Let's see what it looks like. I have a feeling I'm going to like this a little bit more, but let's see what it looks like. So what you want to do is select both of these and go up to minus. And you want to do, actually, let's make sure this is in front. So if you're using the minus in front tool, I mean, you don't have to use that. You can use this as well. I'm sorry. Let's copy in front just to make sure. And that's Command X, Command F. And subtract. And now you should have a circle, right? So now you have a circle. And this center piece is attached in there. But the good thing is all these lines line up right on these columns. So all you really have to do, I mean, if you don't want to just kind of destroy it, just make this a nice square that covers both of that. Go back to this. Make this white and then place it behind this whole thing. And then we have a nice U that's perfect. And I actually don't mind that. I said I was going to like it the other way, but I think it's fine. I think I'm just going to go with it. You know, sometimes what you want to do is your crossbars, this will have to be a little bit less. So you could take this and drag it down just a little bit more, just to kind of create like a funneling effect. And that's okay. But I think what I'm going to do is erase, and then erase, and then delete. And then you have a nice, perfect U. But like I said, you can always pull this particular point down a little bit to create kind of like a funnel there, which is nice if you need that. I don't think this needs it. I think it's okay the way that it is visually. I think it's fine. I don't think your eyeball gets too strained out by that. So, whoops. Let's go ahead and delete that. And keep in mind, it's still there. You know, the shapes are all still there. I didn't destroy anything except for that circle, but I can create another one of those really easily. And let's see here. I kind of like that his last name's Burns, which made me think it'd be kind of cool to like add extra elements of fire or something like that within the name. But I don't know. I'm not digging how this looks when I zoom out, actually. So I think what I might do is select this side and use my arrow keys just to add a little bit of a thickness, just a little bit thicker. It kind of feels like it's funneling. It kind of feels like it's funneling like this, and I'm not sure why, or maybe it's the other way. I can't really tell. It's kind of strange. So play with your just your anchor points to get to where you feel is comfortable. I also feel it's a little too thick. It's a little too wide. So, oops. So I'm going to bring that in a little bit, and I think I'm going to bring this one in a little bit too. I like it to be a little bit thinner. I think it's going to match this a little bit more, but I won't get bogged down too much with that. So what do we got here? I am just gonna, let me tighten up this end now that I have to duplicate it. But, and this technique, you know, isn't for everyone. You know, you might have your own opinions about how it should look, and that is very much valid. But, ends are always fun because this gets really thick sometimes. So you'll see a lot of times in some fonts where somebody will actually cut into these on ends or M's. That's a dramatic version of it. But you look at the kind of armpits of a lot of these fonts, and you'll see people cut those in a little bit just visually. I tend to leave them, and I just adjust things accordingly depending on what I want to do. So I'm going to bring that in a little bit. And delete that. And I'm just making sure that when I merge all this, that this line, as you can see before, had cut into here a little bit. Let me zoom in. Had kind of cut into here. And so when I delete something like that, I'm just making sure that when I merge it all together, it doesn't mess up this kind of perfect curve. Let's see here. How can I make this end look cool? I have an idea. So sometimes you'll see this on old Gothic fonts, and it might be fun to do it here. So let's take a circle, and this is a kind of a fun way of making a star, a sharp star. Oops. There we go. So you take 4 circles, and then take the center circle, throw it all the way to the back, Command Shift bracket back, and we'll just change it to a different color just so it's easier to see. Highlight everything, and then usually what I'll use is just divide, and then just select the center, copy, then select everything again, delete, paste, and now you have a cool like shape. I don't know. I thought that was fun. So let's see here. I think it might be fun to use these, and this is mimicking this curve right here too. So I thought it might be kind of fun to do something that's, you know, mimicking that shape. A pretty powerful way of doing nice spirals is the spiral tool. And that might seem easy to figure out, but I like to use it every once in a while when I'm doing kind of cool ligatures. So if you want to select it, make it to whatever size you want, and if you hold shift, it'll scale at place. But if you hold shift and command at the same time, you can increase or decrease the curve, the amount of spiral in there. And I like to kind of wrench it out a little bit. I don't love perfectly beautiful things, so I'm gonna say that's about what I want. And a cool little trick too that I learned a long time ago is if you want to make it this thick, you could use the width, but this is another different way of doing it, and that's kind of my thing, is learning different ways of doing things. And rotate. Let's rotate you a little bit more. I'm just playing around with it, seeing when I got it. And that looks pretty decent. And Y. And now all I'm going to do is line these 2 points up together. So that looks about right. And then just go in here and select both of those points, Command J, and that joins them together. Move back out. And then highlight, and we're just going to make them all. Now it's one object, and I just want to see what this is going to look like if I move it. And then the S. How are we going to do the S? I kind of like how this isn't like a really nice curvy S. How it kind of like shifts down like this. I like this kind of quick movement. And I might work with this type of font. So I think what we're going to do is basically make sure you're lining up with what your current base font is. And let's see here. You want to make sure everything's nice. Everything's got the same width. And do you see how this width, if I turn it on its side, is a little bit less than this one? It's the same principle as if you were doing the O. Let's see here. Drag this guy down. Okay. And once that's done, drag it back up. And let's increase the size of this guy. And actually, you know what? We're going to make sure this is the same. So let's move that onto its side. Slide this over. That's going to be better. Oops. So yeah, I kind of like how thick that is. It looks pretty rad. At least to me it does. And then let's add some circles in here. This is another way you can make these curves look nice, just by lining everything up, making it white, and then taking the pen tool and making a little black addition. Copy, put behind it, and then there you go. See? You could also merge this and then use, like if I merge these and then you could use these too and do it that way if you wanted. But I don't want to do that. I'm going going to take both of those, copy, paste, rotate. We'll bring this guy down here because we're making an S. Let's go in here a little bit more. Let's see. There. Okay. So now we have this whole thing constructed, and you're like, that doesn't look like an S. Just highlight everything, and we're going to use Mr. Divide. Boink. Just like that. And just delete the stuff you don't need. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to hide it. So Command 3, and then delete. This is nothingness. So delete those, and then use the direct select and slide that bugger on up. And you're going to do the same thing over here. Hide, and then direct select, slide. Starting to look like an S now, isn't it? So yeah, I'm kind of digging this. I'm not sure I love... I don't know if I want to cut in these corners. Let's see what that looks like. And then cut in this bottom corner too. Look at that. Alright. Yeah. Doesn't look too bad as for an S. I think it kind of matches everything so far. Let's see what it looks like with one of these little dudes in the center of it. Oh, let's just bring this over. Cash money. Alright. So now we have kind of the basics down. The B's still aren't done, but that's okay. Highlight everything, copy. We'll bring this onto a new layer. Let's get rid of the guides. So if you go to View, Guides, Clear Guides, burp, and those go away. Alright, so I don't want to mush this in with the end just yet, so I'm going to hide that, and I'm going to delete this guy too, just for right now, because I want basic shapes. I can add the fun stuff later. So let's highlight all this. Delete all the stuff we don't need. Okay. I'm actually gonna delete these for right now. I guess I don't need to delete that one. Let's bring this guy a little closer. And do the same thing over here. This guy a little bit closer. And I'm not in love with this, that R. I don't know, there's just something about it I'm not digging. So let's see here. What can we do? What can we do? Now that this is here, I think I wouldn't mind this looking a little bit more like that. If the N was, or if the R was a little bit, I think I might change it, because this S is really pretty powerful and definitely shows a hierarchy that I like. And so I'm going to delete that, and then I'm going to clean up this S. And you see all these like extra points? We're going to go ahead and delete all this extra stuff. Cleaning up is very important. Especially when you start duplicating a lot of this stuff. I've done this in the past where I've like going through headache mode because I'm sitting there deleting anchor points after I spent hours and hours creating a font, and I duplicated the same thing over and over again. So let's say, yeah, I think I'm okay with that. Copy in front. I'm going to rotate this guy out, slide it over there, and I think what I'm going to do is grab one of my pillars from here. Layers, layers, folks, layers. Always really, really helpful. Slide this over. Makes a great E. That's not what we're doing. Boo, 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 boo. Copy in front. Rotate back the other way. Cool. Dig in that. Alright. Highlight everything. Same thing. Boop. And just delete what you don't want. I actually want to keep that outer one thing, I think. Oops. And I don't like how low this is, especially for an R. So I'm going to highlight all the center pieces and move everything up a little bit. And then let's see what I can do here. Drag this over. Use this. Okay. Delete that, delete that. Oops. Delete that. Delete that. Yeah. I think I like that R a little bit better. And see how different it is from the original? I mean, we're just using this as a guide, but boy, how different it is when you actually get down to, you know, figuring this stuff out. And I like that R a little bit more. I think it fits a little bit better. So yeah, that looks pretty good. Yeah. Okay. I think what I'm going to do is actually move this, like this a little bit more. Kind of looks a little bit more like flames. Something like that. Shooting out of there. I don't know. Guess I don't have to play with that right now. So now onto the bees. So we're going to use the same I column to create our bees. Let's copy, put this guy up here. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do here. I think I want to have these kind of be like capitals, so I want them to be a little bit thicker and a little bit bigger. Not tremendously though. Oops. Keep zooming in. I have a new iMac with a new keyboard and my finger just goes over to the 0 instead of the minus pretty quickly. So I apologize. And let's make this. Let's see what this looks like. Let's see if I just quickly kind of make something. I think I want something that's kind of like, it's kind of fancy. Something that's maybe like, something that's like this. It might look kind of cool. And then I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll put in, you know, kind of brackets here. So, okay. So that worked pretty well. Now we just got to make those, you know, kind of perfect, right? So let's see here. The pen tool. get away from the... Next, we're going to throw this onto a whole new layer. And then let's do some circles. White. And I'm just playing around. You know, there's no secret to this. My eyeballs are just working. That's all. And I'm just trying to figure out how big this, you know, outside, you know, line needs to be for the bee. And what you want to do is always duplicate the width to make sure that you're doing the same width everywhere. So what you want to do is kind of thin this bee out a little bit here because it's going to connect to this other line. So take this, you know, ellipsis, copy in front, make it exactly the same distance there, but you're going to play around with this inner circle to kind of get it so it looks nice, really, really nice. And so you might want to drag it around and delete, and then bring it in here. And if you want things to be a little bit more, I don't know, perfect, or so you're not getting confused, do the same thing we did before. Highlight a white, you know, thing here. Highlight both of these, send them to back, and then there you go. Makes a pretty decent looking P. So yeah, I might bring this in a little bit. And then we're going to do the same thing down here. So let's take this whole thing, make this a lot bigger. And we'll want to make that about the same size. The wind is a-blowing out there. Okay. Yeah, that bee's not perfect, but I like the way this wraps around. I love when bees do that. So, or at least capital B's when they do that, it's really kind of rad. So, I think I'm gonna keep this shape I kind of like. That's another reason to have this lovely little shape there. And also what I want is to make sure that this comes down a little bit. Same thing here. Gives me a little bit of font variance. I think I rotated this a little bit too much. Yeah. I think I'm going to thin this out even more. And then maybe let's give it something kind of cool at the end of this. Maybe curve it. I don't know. Something more like... Yeah, I think we're going to have to drop this down a little bit too. There. Too much. there's no magic key here. It just comes down to working hard, figuring it out. I mean, it's not perfect. You know, and this is kind of the tough thing about it. When I started this, I'm like, well, I don't know if this is gonna come out good or not. You know, and sometimes it's just powering through, figuring out what works. There's no secret sauce here. You're seeing everything that I do in real time, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. I'm feeling this bee looks kind of cool, but I don't know if it really fits anything else. So I think I might abandon this particular bee just because, you know, that's not how this font is. The rest of these letter forms don't really match this kind of curvy, you know, long ligature type of font, which I'll happy to do another video on that. But I think for right now, that's just a little bit too much, too crazy, too much fun. That one would be. So I think what I might do is slide this over. Actually, you know, I can use the R here and create a B. Oops. And make it a little bit bigger. Oops, gonna delete that. Rotate. And that's how you make a B. Needs to be a little bit thinner. Zoom in here. Okay. Now those are in place. The B looks a little bit better. I mean, I'm not in love with it, but it'll do. It'll do, Nick. It'll do. That'll do, pig. I'm going to make it a little bit longer. And I think I'm going to switch something like that. Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't know. Kind of up in the air on that one. Man, bees are tough, yo. All right. So now we have a pretty good sense of the shapes. Now, I'd like to... Well, let's clean this stuff up because this is ridiculous. But, you know, keep in mind, think about how different this started and you know, to what it is now. And that's the nice thing about kind of not tracing over, but just kind of using someone else as a guide. You do get to learn a lot. You play around with, you know, baselines and, you know, why certain things look the way that they do. And you learn a lot about just fonts and illustration and what you like and what you don't like. So just keep in mind, having fun. Don't take yourself too seriously. Just learn different ways of doing things. Let's see here. Slide this in a little bit more. There. Yeah, I kind of dig that. has a real sharp feel to it, which I like. I kind of like that this isn't, because I think it would be a really easy way of just making this square, and I don't think it really feels out of place for some reason. I think the E is starting to feel more out of place out of anything. Let's see here. Slide this guy over. And let's align it to there. And I'm going to move that whole thing up. So lock everything around. Or you can isolate this too. And then use the direct select and slide it up to fit in that little spot. And that's something that, you know, I love doing, is using the negative space or little spaces in between here to add stuff. I've just always done that when it comes to typography. I feel like negative space is always unused space, and so when you're doing, you know, type, it's always fun to kind of just play around, right? And I always add extra little, you know, little things in those spaces, and it adds like a nice custom feel to a lot of the stuff too. So I'm kind of digging this. Not digging that so much anymore for some reason. I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air on that one. Yeah, I don't know. But I think this looks pretty decent. Whoops. And I'm okay with how it looks. So yeah. I think what I'm going to do is add some lines. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, kind of dig that. Okay. And now I kind of want to punch up the kind of shapes that are in here. I want them to kind of look a little bit more, I don't know, fun or just something. I think I just want to punch them up in some way. So let's add some extra funness to them. Let's see here. Boom, like that. Oops. I always hate grabbing those these little anchor points in there to make things rounded. It's always a bit annoying. If you can turn them off, tell me. I haven't Googled it or anything. I just kind of just deal with it. Let's see. Looks pretty cool. I don't know if I dig that. I mean, it definitely adds to the font, but you know, we're trying to be kind of creative here, and maybe that's not the way to go, just because it does feel kind of repetitive for me. So maybe we add something more like that, kind of like a Shogun font or something, some kind of Japanesey type thing. I don't know. I'm still kind of playing around with I like these, so I'm not sure. Man, that leads down the road of kind of personal preference here. But let me turn this, make this a little bit bigger. Go slide that guy over. And do the same thing with this. Yeah. I don't like too crappy. I think it's a fun little like base to start with. So let's copy and paste this. Select all. Expand. Expand appearance. Select everything. Let's go ahead and delete this stuff. It's garbage. And let's get to styling this beast. This and what do I want to do first? Go ahead and go to warp and let's go to flag. Expand. Copy in front. Make it white. Pull out the stroke there. We're going to reduce till, let's do about there. Well, let's actually do this. That looks good. Object expand. Delete Mr. White. Oops. There. Let's say this should be, let's just make it a different color. Only stroke. Okay. Actually, it's probably pretty hard for you to see what that color is, so let's just make it something silly. Silly Billy one. All right. Copy back, and let's increase the stroke. Bind. Alright, so what should we do in the center of this Deuterino? Copy. I'm going to bring this up to the front here. So I'm going to delete these because you're not going to really be able to see them after we're done playing around. Let's see here. So what I try to do is I pull inspiration from a lot of places, but I think what I'm going to try to do here is create a cool like effect with creating a clipping mask. So this is my top. So if you want to kind of imagine it, this is this layer. And then we're gonna create a design in here and here, and then this will be the font that we created before. So this is gonna be this, you know, and we'll try to figure out how this is all gonna kind of work. If you're looking at it like if it's, you know, laying flat, you know, like it was laying like that. Let's see here. Let's copy behind, and we're going to turn that and give it a stroke. Ooh, tons of extra pieces in here. Oops. There. Okay. So take all of that, Command 8, and then highlight everything, Command 7. And now you have an inner line, and that is pretty cool. So let's start actually putting in colors here. For me, I go to color books and I use Pantone Solid Coated. Mostly because I do a lot of t-shirt illustrations, and so it's just been my, you know, particular fonts have always, my particular colors have always come from that. So I'm just going to assign random values for right now. That's your clipping mask, and that's the inside. So I'm going to use my arrow keys to move this down, 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 and I'm just shifting just slightly over. And I'm just aligning it. And I'll show you in a second. See what that kind of does? See how it creates like this cut in effect, like it's been chiseled into like wood, and that's kind of what I'm trying to go for here. So what you want is this would be the shadow of this cut in. And copy behind. And we're just playing around. That's all we're doing. And I'm going to move this. Let's see here. This guy's going to get moved just up a little bit. Oops. I want to move this back. Move this up. Boop. Just like that. Okay. Now that we have that in place, let's add some extra lines. Actually, let's just use the colors that we have. Black and black. I promise this will look nice when we're done. Alright. This is the outside. And this does get confusing, so I've just done it so many times and I'm so used to how it looks that I kind of know where everything is already. But there, so I just added a stroke to the top of it, and then now we have this kind of cut in, right? And it honestly looks really nice. It's just Actually, what I should do is copy in front. I should make this the line, and this I'm going to delete. And since we're rounding all those, let's round those too. And I think what I'm going to do is expand that. And I'm going to make it green. And so that's just me organizing everything in my silly little brain. And then copy behind. Okay. Let's change this to a different color too. Okay. So now we have all that kind of figured out. Now we can add some extra fun little bitsy bops. And let's go ahead and go to blend, steps, and we're going to decrease these buggers. Yeah. I'm actually going to decrease the thickness of this. Let's bring that down to nothing. And we're going to try to mimic this overall shape. So if you go to apply flag, you should have that same shape left in there. And we're going to bring this down a little bit. And this up a little bit. There we go. And let's make sure this is all rounded too. Save. All right. So, hold on. Turn that guy off. Okay. So now we have a pretty decent base down. And I think we're going to take rid of that. I don't think we need it. Boop. Like that. Okay. So this looks pretty decent. I think I'm going to change this inner color to something. Copy back. Let's see if I expand it out. What happens? Copy. Paste. Copy, paste. Put that on a new layer. This is my back layer, so I actually want to delete that and then merge all of this. Merge it again. What's funny is if Ben ever watches this, he's gonna feel weird that he gets to look at his name for this long. I apologize, Ben. I don't think he'll ever watch this, but that's okay. We're not doing it for the views, right? All right, lock that. We're gonna select this layer again. I'm gonna reduce this down. And what I want to do is create kind of like a Sanborn kind of effect, the insurance maps kind of effect. I love those, the typography, and those are beautiful. Look them up if you ever get a chance. They're quite amazing. So what I'm gonna do is have this hold on, let me get rid of this. So let's reduce this a little bit, expand. Okay, so I made it just one thing, one object. So as you can see, it's just all one beautiful block of text, and this will be our background. And so we have this in the front. Let me expand this guy while I'm here thinking of it. Object, expand, and I'm going to lock that and actually let me keep it. I'll keep it locked. Select your background, copy, Control C, Control B, and then slide it down a little bit to, let's say right there, looks pretty decent. And then select this again and select your copied piece, and Option Command B I think brings up your blend tool. That might be I'm not sure if that's a custom one that I made, but that is the way that I do it. And then you have your lovely blend. So go up and go to Object, Blend, and you can go this way if you want. Blend Options is what you want. And we'll want to go to Steps, Preview, and let's increase them. You don't have to go too far. Let's go with 50 and make sure it's nice and smooth. And I'll show you why I chose 50. If you scroll in, well, this actually came out pretty good. Sometimes what happens is it creates this jagged little edge in here, and you can fix that pretty easily if you just expand it out and then stroke the edge of this, and it smooths it out pretty good. And you can use the 3D tool if you want to. I'm not knocking that. It's pretty powerful. So I'm going to expand all this. Object, expand again. And see all these layers. And it looks beautiful. I mean, it really does. I love the way it looks. I play with the blend tool a lot. It's really powerful, and I love using it with type. It gives me a lot of control. And so right now I'm just basically merging all that together so it's one object. And right. And I think what I'm going to do is start introducing a nice background. So I'm going to bring this over here, and I'm going to slide in a nice background to the whole thing. And that looks pretty decent. And I should sync up these blacks, because right now I got two separate blacks, and that can be kind of annoying. So I'm going to sync them up. Sometimes that happens and you don't notice it because you're on a crappy screen. If people hadn't seen what I was doing, I'm using a retina screen, and so you can really tell the difference between certain colors. And so I like the darkness of this, but I want to see the shadow, right? So basically all I'm going to do is highlight the back of this, copy behind, and then use my eyedropper. And I'm just going to select this color for right now. Round those guys out. And boom. That added a fun little effect to it, right? And so that looks pretty cool. I'm liking the way this looks. I think what I want to do is add some kind of fun effects though in here that might be a little bit different. Let's create a box. Let's say here. I'm going to throw it to the back. know if this is going to work the way that I want it to, but yeah, let's see here. Maybe what I want to do is actually slide this up a little bit. Oops. Slide this guy up. Yeah, I think I'm going to delete it. There we go. Okay, so I'm liking the way this looks, but I'm not loving. I think what I want to do is maybe do something. And this is the fun part of you coming along with me. This is what I talk to myself about. If you're waiting for some polished video, it's not me, man. Like, just follow along, have fun, do your own thing while you're listening to me, maybe, or follow along with me and actually do it yourself. Experiment, have fun. I know I'm not an internet personality, you know. I don't have what it takes to do that, but I love sharing my knowledge with people. So if you come to my channel and get upset with the video because it's long, or maybe I'm trailing off in thought, okay. I mean, it doesn't hurt my feelings that you left and went to some other polished channel. Just know that polished channel is boring. I mean, I don't know. I find it boring. I like genuine people, so be genuine as far as I'm concerned. So, okay. So I don't mind either of those. I'm going to expand them. Object, expand. And let's create this. Let's be that color. Group. And you can do this a few different ways. I'm just kind of playing around with what I like. That's all. I think this just kind of needs a little extra oomph, or just something more fun. Group. There. Group. Let's see here. And I'm just playing around. Just something fun, that's all. I mean, we can do more. You know, you can do more in here if, let's say, you want to add a little bit more zhuzh, a little bit more fun in here. You know, you could get rid of this. Like, this is a style I use a lot. But if, let's say, you didn't love this inner, you know, lines in here. Let's change that. Let's do something different. Now that you kind of saw, this is kind of where I was going with the whole thing, but let's experiment and add some more stuff, because I think I've done a few videos where you're kind of getting this feel of how this all looks. So let's try something new. So let's go like here. You're stuck in here with me. It's just how it is. So I'm gonna duplicate this, hide this bottom one because I don't want to delete it. Delete that outer one. And, you know, I didn't work too hard in making sure this is perfect. No offense to Ben, who will never watch this, let's be honest. But I just didn't take the time to do that. I just kind of wanted to have a fun little video where people could follow along. But, all right, so let's say you didn't like those lines. You want to try something different. Totally cool. This is a fun... well, let's go like this. Let's take this out too. I'm not a huge fan of this. There. Also not a huge fan of just white. So let's change this to... Ugh. Let's change this to this. And you can do some fun stuff. Copy in front, and let's do, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, let's do a gradient and see what that looks like. So go to your gradients panel, select gradients. We can do something like this, looking nice, right? Give it nice highlights. And you can always combine these things too, you know, I mean, let's say you still liked this, you know, you can add that into it, and this is tough to recreate if, let's say, it was you know, printed on a certain place, but you can always add little highlights. And since Ben's last name is Burns, it might make sense to make it more, you know, fire related or something like that. So we can actually take this and let's change this gradient to something a little bit more. I like this orange. I think that's a fun orange. Whoops. Hide all that. So let's bring that orange in. And don't know why that B isn't changing. Oh, did I lock that? Highlight there. Let's get all of them in there. And what should the bottom be? Well, if it's flame, it's orange at the bottom and red on the top. So let's actually flip those. Let's go with red. Let's go with that nice red. And then going back to that orange. Okay. I mean, that's a little intense, but I think we can work with it. And then these, we're going to change to black. And see how when we're doing that like cut in, see how like it's getting a little muddy in here. So what you want to do is, and this is a great thing about keeping your layers, you'll want to select this. Let me just make sure I can highlight in case people can't see it. So let's highlight here. Copy in front. Well, actually, let's not do that. Hold on one sec while I'm trying to figure this out. Okay, and add white. Go back. All right. So this will give you a better understanding of what I'm talking about. So the reason that we're doing this thicker, darker inner side is to give the appearance that this is cut into here. So it gives it that shadow. And adding this extra stroked highlight gives you that visual cue right away. And you can kind of see how what happens when you add just that little stroke in there. It really does help. To match everything, it would make more sense if it was like orange or something like that. But I didn't mind the white either. And let's say, you know, you kind of did all that and it's looking pretty decent. Let's try doing something. Let's go ahead and actually delete. Yeah, let's delete that. And I still have this background, so let me get rid of the background for a second. And let's say you weren't going to do this on black, so you wanted to add something extra to the background here. Copy and paste. Actually, I don't want. Let's do a different one. Yeah. So we're going to do kind of the same thing where we're with these line work, and we're going to create another line here. Just a box, just a rectangle. Slide it down and decrease this in size and use the blend tool again. So let's blend it all together. And I think what I'm going to do is definitely, if you double click on a layer, it brings up your layer options. And if you're having trouble finding the guides, I apologize. I'll switch this over to a much, oh, hold on. I'll switch it to a much lighter color. Let's go with, so let's do something that's not that crazy. Blend options, and that's why it's at 1,000. We want this to way down. Let's say that. Okay. And this is really fine work. If you know that this, like, I'm assuming that obviously this isn't gonna go anywhere. Ben's not a client of mine or anything. It's just a thank you, and then the subsequent video I'm gonna create from it. But if this was going to a client, make sure you ask them where they're gonna be printing this stuff. So if let's say this is only gonna be online somewhere, you're doing some typography for a YouTube channel or a client that does screen design, and it's going to be fine living in that space. But if it's something that's screen printed, it's going to have a lot more other issues that you need to kind of take in, like the point size, how thick these lines are, because it might not show up. So do your homework, know where it's going to go. If a client doesn't know themselves, then just play it safe and make it so that it can be printed anywhere. And that's generally what I do. Especially with me, I work a lot in vector, so I have to deal with other challenges, but being able to print on anything isn't one of them. So that is kind of nice. That's why I love working with vector, and that's why I've kind of threw my hat in the vector camp instead of working with Photoshop, which I know a lot of beautiful designers use Photoshop. To me, it's just I bet on Illustrator, and I'm glad that I did. I think people are really starting to use Illustrator a lot more for a lot of things, and I certainly use it for everything that I do. If the only time I really use Photoshop now is if I want like a really nice texture for a t-shirt design, or if I'm doing some screen design for a YouTube channel, I might use Photoshop. I still use Sketch actually for a lot of that, which is a vector-based program as well, but is really good for screen layouts and things like that. So just keep that in mind. And let's see here. So let's grab this guy. We're gonna zoom in a little bit more. I'm gonna reduce this a little bit. And I think I'm going to increase the density of these lines as well. So object, blend options, preview, and that should be nice. And usually what I try to do is actually match up the angle of these lines with the angle of the shadow here. So what you want is, this angle is well, it's kind of like that. So you want these lines to match up with that, because you don't want to throw too much at it, and I'll show you why in a second. But that looks pretty decent. I dig that, and I think what I'm going to do is just create a background, and so go ahead and copy paste behind, and just to make sure I have one there, highlight this in here. I know, a lot of layers, right guys? A lot of layers, and I'm just drilling down until I get to where I want to go. All right, and make sure that all that's there. Okay. Now we have that. I'm going to X that out. If you hit Command X, it copies it, but make sure you paste it somewhere because you'll lose it. I'm going to go down to our backgrounds layer. I'm going to copy this, hide that back one, paste on this layer. Whoops. Paste on this layer. And then what I want to do is send this behind this object. And if you want to hit Command H, It's going to prep it for a clipping mask, and then Command 7 brings you up the clipping mask. And boom, we have a nice, beautiful thing. But then watch this. Boop, boop, boop. All right. So let's go ahead, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change this to, I mean, we seem to be using that color a lot, but let's change that color around, I think. All right, that's not going to work. Boop, boop. Okay, let's change it to orange. Yeah, let's change it to orange. I guess it doesn't matter. I can change it back to whatever I want. So we're going to add the black and the black background. Okay. So now you're like, ew, that looks awful. Don't worry. Don't worry. We're going to add another stroke to this, and you're going to love strokes when you're doing this type of work. I use stroke. I stroke things out constantly, so here's how we're going to do this, though. Let's use a less crazy color, I think. This is throwing me off because it's a little intense. And I still have the blend options here, so go to blend options, and let's increase them just a little bit. And this is the nice thing about keeping things intact, is you get to play with this stuff and see what works for you. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So make sure you're always, I know working with clients a lot is tough because they might come in and have these corrections that you weren't really anticipating. So when I'm dealing with clients a lot, it's a lot of layers and layers and layers, because I never want to destroy anything, because I have a feeling that they're, and not a feeling, this happens all the time. They think they're art directors and they come in and they're like, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't know why this is this way and that's this way, so change this and that. And it's all things that you might have deleted or didn't have access to, so then you got to redraw it and you got to figure it out again, and that's never fun. So I'm not loving how thick these lines are, so I'm going to change that because I want them to be real subtle. Oh, that's why I have a stroke on it. Dum. All right. Okay. And let's change this, no stroke. And you can play with this and you can get as detailed as you want. The nice thing about doing this type of work is that if you're dedicated to this craft, you can spend as much or as little time on it as you want. And vectors are free, so play and play and play until you figure out what you are awesome at. And I think I'm actually going to reduce this even more, so let's bring that down. Where's my line here? There it is. Yeah, that's looking more like what I want. Oops, a little bit too much. I don't want it to be nothing. And again, if this was a screen printed thing, this might not come out because the point might be too small. So As you know, good rule of thumb for me is anything, if you're screen printing at a same size, 1 point. So let's say this is green. So this is the thickness that it would need to be to show up with screen printing. I mean, most use what, 220s now, maybe 230s screen mesh. So that'll change, but for the most part, I do everything. If it's 1 point and above, it'll be fine. So yeah, I'm digging the way that looks. It looks kind of fun, interesting, and it kind of has a cool effect of like burning behind this. And you can change, like, don't think that this is the only way to do it, but it gives you kind of a good idea of how to experiment with a lot of this stuff and see what works for you. Sometimes it might not work, and sometimes it'll work fantastically. And there we go. I mean, I think I personally probably like this version the most. But you can go even further. Like you can add, highlights in here. Let's say we'll add a highlight in here just by stroking this and then bringing this guy in. And let's say, whoops. No, I'm not on the right layer here. And this guy, let's say, is going to be, oh, guess I should just do this over here. That way we're not getting confused. And you can add these kind of going around. I'm not saying this is the best font for this, but let's say you want to add a little extra to it. You could do that. Or let's say get rid of that. And I kind of like those lines. They're really super clean. But yeah, I hope. I think I'm kind of done with this. I'm probably not going to do too much more. Just because I don't want to spend the rest of my life doing this, as kind of a fun little thank you note. Whoops, kind of screwed that up. I didn't kinda. I definitely screwed that up. Oh, that's why. So. Boop. There. And let's reduce this down. See what that looks like. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And I mean, this is just for fun. It doesn't need to be super serious, but let's add, let's add some other elements in here. I know I said I was going to stop, but it's addicting and you want it to look cool, right? So I think Ben lives out in California. I'm not 100% sure where he lives, but it's always sunny out there, so let's give him a sun and yeah, let's give him a sun. Copy and paste so I get that gradient. And make this gradient this way. What? Let's see. Reduce it. And then since we already have a grid made, okay. That was fun, right? Sure, I'll like, why are we watching this video now? That's why, because I wanted to show you how to make a cool gradient look even cooler and bring this into blend. I use blend a lot, so if you don't know what blend is, you're not hip with the times. I don't know. There's probably like a way easier way, a much easier way to doing this, but this is just kind of my way of doing it. I'm an old dog and I don't want to change. So that's cool. Let's do a palm tree because there's a bunch of those right out in California. I don't know what palm trees look like anymore. Let's say they look like that, right? I actually don't know what a palm tree looks. It looks pretty, look kind of like a palm tree, right? Yeah. I'm talking to no one. And delete that. And palm trees have. Oh, that's a coconut tree, right? Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, Ben, if you know the difference. What am I saying? He's never going to watch this. Group this guy. Yeah. Looks like something old, new, newer, neo-noir, Sanborn insurance maps with some cool things in there. So I think I'm done. I might add a few extra elements before I send this out, but I think this is really cool. I hope you had fun following along with me. And it's super late and I'm super tired, but I am really, really happy that you watched this video all the way to the end. And go check out the Futur. They're a cool brand. I'm not sponsored by them. They have no interest in caring about little old me in New Hampshire, but they have some great information for designers. So thanks so much. Bye.